terminal illness does not require radiation or chemotherapy. Nor does it take, a friend of mine has 20,000 every 2 weeks in IVIG for a condition he has in his nerve, the sheath of his nerves. And, you know, you go to a meeting, you put a buck or two in a basket. I mean, you know, at tops, it probably cost you $10 a week, you know, not 20,000 every 2 weeks, you know. I mean, it's just, if you're going to have a terminal illness, this is the one to have. The worst treatment you will have is maybe boring meetings occasionally, you know, and so, okay. The other part of this that I want to deal with, because that's step 3, but we've used a word here a lot, and it causes just incredible confusion in people's mind. You know, spiritualities, you know, people have it confused with religion, first of all. In fact, in kind of cheap dictionaries, if you look it up, they'll probably say, relating to religion, or something like that. And that's fine for the person on the street. Their life doesn't depend on it. But believe me when I tell you, your life depends upon knowing the difference. Your life depends upon knowing the difference. Because if you go off on some religious track on this, rather than a spiritual track, that doesn't work. It wasn't working in 1935, it wasn't working in 1835, it wasn't working in 35. It hasn't worked. So it's really important, and my big failure at first in AA was very much got to do with, I would get to steps 2 and 3, and I would start curing it, or trying to cure it, by going back to my religious understandings of things. So it was like, God is up there, he's got his book, he's keeping a record, you know, I'm going to have to appear and answer, and, you know, and if I pray hard enough, he's going to rearrange the universe so I will not be inconvenienced, and, you know, all of this kind of nonsense stuff, you know, which a lot of us bring from about 2nd grade into adulthood. You know, if we went around doing math at 2nd grade level, people would laugh at us. You know, they'd steal our money. So, so here we're going around with these kind of fairy tale versions of theology. I mean, just really silly, ridiculous things. And so when we go back to that, remember I said yesterday about, you know, I'm sober with the help of God. Yeah, God was a big help. He's very good in certain situations. You know, I mean, what kind of a view of the infinite is that in which I live and move and have my being, right? This is like so demeaning and what it does is so damaging to us, because we can't have a viable spiritual life while we're still constrained in our mind in some little box we created in 2nd grade of an idea. So when we talk about spirit, it's very important to first of all realize where the word comes from. This much of it, with A-O at the end, is I breathe. That is all it means. It is the verb in Latin to breathe. In fact, in Greek, the word for spirit is P-N-E-U-M-A. Does that sound familiar? Look familiar? Pneumonia, pneumatic, right? I mean, so when we have allowed spirit to become something like supernatural, their spirit is not supernatural. What does supernatural mean? Above. Super. Above natural. No, it is natural. There's nothing more natural than breathing. Animals do it. We do it. And what does it mean if you're breathing? You're alive. You're alive. In fact, back before they knew a whole lot, we had a lot of technology and stuff, one of the ways they decided if you were dead or alive, they had a piece of polished metal or a mirror, and they held it to your mouth and see if it clouded. Because if it clouded, you were alive. If it didn't cloud, their word for it was you had X. Which meant the breath had gone out. The breath had gone out. And when somebody comes up to you and a restaurant and you've given them your Visa card and they come up and they go, "I'm sorry, madam, your card seems to have kicked the bucket." The breath has gone out of it, right? Your card has expired, right? It died. So this word, we've got to get back to its real meaning for it to make any sense. Otherwise, we're off on some sort of third-rate religious crusade. And it has nothing to do with that at all. Nothing at all got to do with that. So spirit has to do with the life force that's inside us. And it's the word that our ancestors have used back to, if you just come with me for a second, back to a time when, after the Ice Age receded, what is that, like 20,000 years ago or something? And people started migrating north, and our ancestors, same DNA. This is surviving DNA that's in every one of us because it's come down from then. Okay, there's this family in the cave, our relatives. And the children, and a lot of them, have never seen human death. And they have this little safe family surrounded by very dangerous stuff, like all these wild animals that are extinct now, and Neanderthals who may not have been that friendly. And so here they're kind of huddled, and all of a sudden, one of the central figures in the family, say the mother, stops breathing. And the kids are stunned, baffled. Like, where did all the warmth? Where did the caring? Where did the fun, the humor? Where did the music? Where did it all go? What left the cave that day? Something left the cave that day. And everything she was, except for the remains of this body, which has maybe already started to melt, because it informs the body even. It keeps the body informed as long as it's there. Once it leaves, the body starts to dissipate. So something left the cave that day. And we've been trying to figure out what that is ever since. And the word we give it is spirit. So spiritual awakening means that from being spiritually asleep, sleepwalking through our lives, all concerned about what kind of carpet I'm going to get, and I'm going to make money, I'm going to, what kind of a job, what kind of benefits, what kind of this, what kind of that, what do they think about me, my friends, and all of this kind of nonsense. And we are sleepwalking around the fact of our spirit, the life force that is in us. And the life force that is in us and the life force that's in every living thing has a lot of resemblance, because it all grows, matures, and withers and dies. And so we have this empowering spirit inside of us. And when we talk about a spiritual awakening, it means that instead of being numb, dumb kind of adolescents in our approach to life, we wind up becoming very aware that this has something to produce while it is here, something to do while it is here. And this is when we talk about step 11, we say, praying only to know what I should do with my life. Because if I am so distracted by all the other shit, and I forget. Yeah, and what does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and suffer the loss of his soul? This spirit. What does it profit him if he gain the whole world and suffer the loss of this? And wise people all down through the centuries have tried, for millennia, have tried to tell us, forget the superficial, get to what is important, because believe me, guys, the only part of you that doesn't know what you should do with your life is your thinking mind. Every other part of you knows just as truly as an acorn knows how to be an oak tree. I got this when back we had lived in San Francisco, and we moved to Novato. And in San Francisco, we had concrete in the backyard. And in Novato, we wound up having a place about the size of this room off to the side, and I decided I was going to plant vegetables. So I planted these vegetables, and it was great fun. I'd never done vegetables before. And so Sunday afternoon, I have amended the soil and planted my beans and tomatoes and zucchini, and I had no idea. I had a 6-pack of zucchini, and which is enough for Northern California. But I'm so proud of it. I've got stepping stones and everything in it, and I'm watering it and all of these little plants. And it dawned on me a very kind of sad thought, that I had more faith that that little zucchini plant would actually produce zucchini than if a child of mine had been with me, that he or she would have done what they came to do. I mean, you would lock somebody up if you heard them saying to zucchini, I don't want to see any yellow squash on you guys. I'm keeping my eye on you, tomatoes. You're supposed to be beefsteak, and if you get lazy and start coming up with cherry tomatoes, I'm not going to be satisfied. I mean, we don't do that. Why? Because we believe in the life force that's in a tomato plant, and we believe in the life force that's in a zucchini. It would be a big improvement in faith if any of us in this room ever believed as much in the life force inside of us as we do in a zucchini. And the entire program of recovery. What does recovery mean? It means getting something back. It doesn't mean getting well, except by analogy. The word recover means to get something back. What is it we get? We get our authentic life. That's what the whole program is about. It's about people who've been doing all kinds of other busy shit and forgetting that the one thing they could do with complete enthusiasm has escaped them. And they've been so busy doing other stuff. So The only thing we pray for in step 11, it says, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out. That is just a kind of a semi-religious way of saying, I need to know what I should be doing with my life, and it's the only thing to pursue. There was a great German theologian called Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was executed by Hitler like in the last months of the war, hung on a meat hook. Gruesome. His whole family, because some of his relatives had been involved in the plot against Hitler, and because of that, he had been kind of looking for the excuse to do away with Bonhoeffer because Bonhoeffer would not go along with the Nazis. He hadn't since the early 30s. He had condemned them, but they hadn't dared touch him until they could smear him with this. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer has this great statement where he says, my friends, spirituality is not about being good. Neither is it about doing good. It is solely about discovering the will of God for me. What I am supposed to do with my life. All spiritual paths, guys, have this in common. They are getting us away from the superficial to what is essential.
All distractions.
Huh?
All the distractions out there.
Right, all those distractions, get them away from us and focus, become spiritually awake to where I am on a path to actually do my life before my life is over. And to finish up, there's some friends of mine from Ireland have an orchard. Julian in San Diego County is up high. They get snow and they get frost and all of that. You're familiar with Julian, and you know Julian apple pie is legendary. It's all over the place in Southern California. We carry Julian apple pie. Well, these friends of mine have an orchard with like about 8,000 apple trees, different varieties, you know, that come in at different times, and they supply the apple pie factories and stuff. And but one day I was up and they were showing me around, you know, and on the way home I started getting this thought. And join me for a second in this fantasy. Here's this great apple tree in the middle of this orchard, and this apple tree develops intelligence. And it uses its intelligence to send its roots like to the best part of the orchard. It doesn't just dumbly follow the sun, it anticipates the sun. So it catches more of the sun's rays. And it grows the very best apples until one day there's a breeze, and on the wind it catches a page from the Wall Street Journal, and it reads the headline that says, the price of apples has fallen through the floor. Cherries. Everybody wants cherries. And it decides it's going to grow cherries. So here, the next season, it starts, and it won't let the apples get any bigger than this. And it tries to get them red. And it like puts all its energy into trying to produce these little red things. And it uses all its energy to do this. And the sad thing is, this will never be a cherry tree, right? It'll just be a badly messed up apple tree, right? And that's what treatment centers are for. People who have forgotten what it is or never discovered what it was their natural product, and have spent their life trying to produce something else. And so the message of this is to grow our apples. Find out what it is